Next topic is probably one of the biggest ones that we've been talking about over the past 2 years, and that's unit statusing with our WebCAD, and also finding ways to reduce radio traffic. Again, it's about how we can work together with LCWC and putting some standardization and terminology across the board for everybody to be using, and just overall streamlining our processes. So we're going to dive into this one and have everybody here at the table kind of chime in on different things that you see that we're working on to improve for everybody. So I'm going to start off here with Andy, give a little bit about that perspective on when that line at LCWC lights up with a 911 call, how that gets processed on your end to getting it to the field units.
Sure. All calls start usually with a phone call, and we have the call taker enters the call into CAD, sends a call over to the dispatcher. Our system is set up where the dispatcher can receive the call while the call taker is still on the phone taking information. So the dispatcher will do the initial dispatch with the information they have from the call taker, address, basic incident type, basic details, and we'll send it out that way. So that will get the dispatch made, and again, we can have additional information being gathered from the call taker during that time. And
that additional information is what we see within the comments, correct?
The dispatcher sees exactly what you see on your end. So anything that you see in the WebCAD is exactly what our dispatcher sees.
So there's not a reason for me to be driving, responding to the call, being the officer, looking at the CAD comments, and then radioing back to you saying, give me additional information.
Correct. If you're able to see that information, you're going to see exactly what we have. I would count on our dispatchers to still make any announcements that are safety concerns. So if there's anything in there in the comments that indicate a danger to the responders, I would expect our staff to announce that regardless of your reading it.
Okay. And Jeremy, I'm going to turn it over to you. Now you received that dispatch as a chief officer in the county. What is two points here? One is, how do you go about using it off of WebCAD, right, on your iPad in your vehicle? And then also, if you were using the radio, some of that common terminology that is approved and what we want to be seeing here in Lancaster County.
Right, so I think it's going to come down to, like, what is the call type, that kind of thing. So we, to clear up some of the radio chatter and reduce it, right, push button static is kind of the way to go, because it doesn't involve any of that radio dialogue, doesn't involve me sending a message, county receiving it and sending it back to me. It's kind of an instantaneous thing. So like if you're in the fire trucks or your fire apparatus or EMS units, whatever it is, you're dispatched on the call, a couple of buttons appear at the top of the screen, and you can just hit ENR for en route. Or what's the other, is yours actually ONS? Yeah. Yep, ONS for on scene, right? And those are instantaneous transactions that don't need a response back to you. If you're in a command car and you're going to log in as an individual person, right, you might not be able to do that. So you have to have that separate unit designation for the duty officer to be able to do it. So as your agency, we'd like to see everybody use push button status as much as possible. I know there was some discussion about people, not being able to put their staffing in. So with the web chat feature, you do have the ability to push en route and then send a web chat message through to the dispatcher working your incident saying, with 6, right, for engine 74-2 with 6 or something. And that way, we pretty much eliminated the radio transmissions that tie up the radio for a lot of mundane stuff. Same thing, like your wires down calls and stuff like that. Does your staffing 100% really matter on those ones? Maybe it does for your agency. If so, that's the dispatcher. If not, they can probably be omitted and just kind of let go. So that answers the first part of your question, right? Anything else on that?
That then just would be the terminology.
So the second part of this whole policy is to streamline communications and get everybody speaking the same language. So we hear lots of different things on the radio, like I'm en route, I'm responding, all these different things. I'm available, I'm ready, I'm in service. So the goal was to establish a common terminology. So the two terms that we're willing to accept as the Radio Advisory Committee and as the dispatchers would be en route and responding. So you can say engine 74-2 is en route with 6. If you are using the radio version of it, you can say engine 74-2 with 6. You can omit the responding or the en route portion. Okay, that just streamlines that communication, and we don't need to do it back and forth. I don't need to say, hey county engine 74-2, wait for Ann to acknowledge me. Engine 74-2 with 6. That's a 2-part thing. It's completely unnecessary. We can combine that down to 1. Right. The other part of the terminology to talk about is going available. So at the very end of the incident, you can either send a nice chat message to your dispatcher and say engine 742 is available, or you can pick up the radio and say engine 742 is available. We're trying to avoid terms like ready, I'm in service. Those things can lead to communication confusion, and we just don't want to see them or hear them on the radio.
All right, I think I'll turn it now over to LCWC side on this is, let's talk about mutual aid partners responding to a call. What channels should we be responding on in that situation?
If you're a mutual aid company and you are going to know you have to switch talk groups, you should switch talk groups immediately, like before you go responding. You know, it would benefit you and benefit us. It would benefit you by hearing the call from the beginning on the working channel. So if you're a company that normally operates on B and you have to go to C for an incident, the quicker you get to C, the quicker you're going to hear what's going on as far as county talking to the responding officer or giving updates from the police, or if there's a responder there. It would help us by not having us to tell you, truck 74, you need to be on B. You know, you go around on A, hey, you're supposed to be on B. It just is one more part of that we don't need to be involved in, and it would, and honestly, it would probably help you as much as it helped us.
And in addition to that, the dispatcher working C is the dispatcher that has the call information in front of them, has the ability to do your status right in front of them. It saves an extra step that the dispatcher you're talking to would have to take.
I guess some other key points for LCWC would be working incident. We don't need to hear all these additional squads responding with manpower, right? That's something we want to see done over on ops, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, or the other thing is too, if you're the IC and you know that, two people walk up to you and say, hey, we're here on squads, they can just send us a web chat or something, hey, drop squad 74 on squad 70 on this call, they're here. That's fine, we'll let you do that. Just send us a web chat and, we can throw them on there.
Yeah, I think another key point that we should highlight also, as Jeremy said, about streamlining, making things consistent so we don't have a miscommunication piece, is how we classify emergency and non-emergency. So those are the two terms that are used in Lancaster County. We are not using under caution, reduced rate, slow your response, or priority. Those are not modes that we use here in Lancaster County, and we're going to continue to use emergency and non-emergency as our two types of responses. Any more on the responding section of unit statusing? Okay, we'll turn it over to the arrival side of things now as we move into an incident, and we'll turn it over to Chief Smith.
Okay, so again, to reiterate something that Jeremy said when we talk about responding, number one, we want to stress the use of the webcat as much as possible. So, for arrival, again, it's super simple. If there's a push button, you just hit that and indicate. You don't have to worry about being on the radio, being acknowledged. You don't have to worry about the nigh tones. You don't have to worry about waiting for a clearing on the radio so you can get your message out. So that is by far the easiest way for everyone involved to use that webcat statusing. But if you do, we need to use the radio or prefer to use the radio or whatever that situation is, similar to the response, we've established acceptable terminology, which for arrival is on location, arriving, or on scene. So, you can say engine 25-1 is on location, engine 25-1 is arriving, or engine 25-1 is on scene. Those will be the acceptable, recognized terms for arrival of units. Anything other than that is strongly discouraged. So the other part then to arrival is, Chris talked about the primary talk group being on that channel. This would be the point now when you would switch your radio, whether it's to an ops, if you've been assigned that, or to your private talk group, municipal talk group, whatever it is that you're using for that specific incident. Once you've indicated your arrival on scene, whether it's through the webcat or via the radio, now is when you would switch to whatever that working channel is going.
Appreciate that. Anyone else on the at the round table have anything to add to the arrival before we go to Ann for transportation and transporting the hospital and EMS. Do you have anything for that, Abe?
No, I think that the EMS are pretty well adapted at what they're doing. They put themselves en route to the hospital using the webcat for the most part, and they can also arrive themselves at the hospital using the same thing.
Appreciate that. And again, this is all about all the multiple disciplines coming together, using some of the technology we have and getting everybody on the same page to help LCWC and dispatchers to limit radio traffic. So we'll kick it back over to Jeremy now for the available piece on as we move into this incident and how that terminology looks moving forward.
Yeah, so depending on the incident type, I mean, we see and hear all kinds of different ways that people are going available. You know, and Chris and I were having some conversation about it a little bit ago, right? So we talked about how we can push, we're trying not to push the AVI button, but we can call it out over the radio. Engine 742 is available. Or, you know, we're trying to avoid those other terms like ready, in service, that kind of stuff. Or we can send a web chat. So if it's a single unit response, you know, it's just one engine handling a wires down call, send a message to your dispatcher through the web chat, say, hey, engine 742 is available, and they're going to process that call and close it all out, and you'll see yourself disappear off the CAD. Some of the other things that Chris and I talked about was like if the incident commander says, hey, hold it to engine 742, you can place all the others in service or available. There's no real need for anybody to acknowledge it, right? Like the units are just going to pop off the CAD, the dispatcher is going to clear them. Again, no need for individual units to call out and say, you know, engine 70 is available, engine so-and-so is available. It's going to happen automatically. So I think one of the bullet points was about establishing the trust in here. It's the dispatcher's looking out for us, we're trying to help them, and they're going to help us.
Yeah, I think it's important to speak to again is the fact that not every unit needs to actually call that they're available.
Yeah.
Right. Once the incident commander says the box clear, you know, we're complete, that's all units are available from the CAD and placed back in, available. So it's important we don't all have that rundown. So.
Can I, just one clarification, semantics thing too that we talked about in committee, and that is just the understanding of incident complete and units available. You know, one of the things that seems to commonly happen is someone will say, you know, command will say the incident's complete, so-and-so is going to be remaining on scene, they'll go available. Well, it's not possible for someone to remain on scene or on an incident if the incident's complete. So again, just the semantics thing, an incident isn't complete until all of the units are cleared off that incident and available. So.
Yeah. I think we talked about, right, less is more. Right? To steal Chris's terminology for closing out an incident, it doesn't need to be like a full dissertation about everything you did. Right, that's all going to be covered in your report narrative in theory when you write your reports in Firehouse, ESO, whatever we're using. We don't need to give a full dissertation about smoke detector on the 15th floor, whatever it is, or the 5th floor. You know, we're just available.
So with that, go back to the out of service, in service piece.
Yep. So again, going back to the WebCAD, the WebCAD makes placing units out of service or in service extremely easy. There's it's the shift change feature that's in the WebCAD. So that part of it maybe is a little misleading, but once you find it the first time, it's extremely easy. It's literally all of your units will be listed there, and there's a checkbox next to each one. If the box is checked, that means the units are in service. If the box is unchecked, that means the unit is out of service. And it's a simple mouse click to turn the check on or the check off. And that's all you have to do to place a unit in or out of service. So any units then that are placed out of service, by removing that checkbox, automatically get replaced in the CAD if there's an incident based on whatever unit designation they are due on that call. Now, if you do want a specific unit listed as a cover for your out of service unit, then you will need to call in to LCWC and go over that with them, and they can make those changes in the CAD. Otherwise, it literally it takes 3 seconds to put a unit in service or out of service, and it's good to go. There's no need to you know, bog down the LCWC dispatchers with making that phone call. So the other part to that is, again, going with this theme of, you know, less radio traffic. The one thing that we also want to make sure doesn't happen is you should not be calling that out over the radio, you know. But that a unit is back in service or place this unit out of service. Again, that should all be done, hopefully through the webcad, but your second option then would be a phone call.
Very good, and to round out the unit statusing is the activity, right? So does somebody, LCWC, want to talk about activity and why we should use the telephone and what those activities are?
Yeah, I mean, lots of people use fire activity, EMS activity for varying things, whether it's training or if they're going to go do a inspection or, you know, a smoke detector install. We would greatly prefer that was done over the phone rather than the radio. To be quite frank, the radio is busy enough as it is, let alone with, you know, either like Chief Smith said, units going in and out of service, or can you put me out here for a pre-incident survey or a smoke detector install, let me know when the alarm comes in, and then there's a back and forth about that. If you just call on the phone, you know, just, hey, we're gonna be out here on fire activity, cool, because then the next thing I can ask you is, are you available or not? Rather than going back and forth on the radio, like truck 204 is gonna go out on a public service call for whatever the incident is. The first thing I'm gonna ask them on the phone is, well, are you available in the incident? Sure, we'll put you on it, take care of it, so let us know when you're clear.